Coming to you from 4,200 feet in the hills of Oregon, it is the voice of Chi-Town, the reddest beard in the high desert, your host of the MOA Broadcast, Sam Wilson. All right, folks, we got a fantastic show lined down for you today. All kinds of good information, and best of all, it is Friday. By the time you are watching this, it will be early Friday morning. It is already a very early Friday morning here in the hills of Southern Oregon, where I am recording the show, and hopefully you will get this on your way to work, or right when you get to work, or when you're doing your morning routine, whatever it is, having a delicious cup of coffee. Now, folks, don't forget, we've talked about this a number of times on the show. One of my favorite things to add to coffee is butter. Now, I don't expect everybody to like it, but at least give it a try. I don't really like white sugar in my coffee. White sugar, to me, it just tastes overly processed, and it kind of ruins the flavor of the coffee to me. If I'm going to put like one or two sugar cubes in, like if I'm having espresso and that's what they have at the coffee shop or whatever, then I may or may not do that. But typically I'll drink it black. If I'm going to add sugar, I like the turbinado sugar or the sugar in the raw. Those types of browner sugars that they have extra flavor to them. They really enhance the flavor of the coffee, especially like a good deep French roast. Those unrefined and unprocessed sugars really enhance the flavor, and I find them very enjoyable. Now, if I'm not adding sugar, or even, which I add sugar to my coffee probably maybe once or twice a month, if that. The other times that I have coffee, especially the first one or two cups, I like to add the Kerrygold. I couldn't think of it the other day, but the Kerrygold butter, it's the Irish cream butter. Oh, it is delicious. And I actually prefer the salted over the unsalted. So, try it, whatever. All I'm asking, give it a shot. You may find you like it. It works a lot better if you keep your butter in like a butter dish and it's not refrigerated, because then it dissolves much easier in the coffee. If I'm going to do like an AeroPress or a French press coffee, then what I'll do is I'll go ahead and just put about a heaping teaspoon or a medium-sized tablespoon of the Kerrygold butter at room temperature in the coffee cup, and that way when I pour in the coffee, or if I'm doing the AeroPress, as it's kind of slowly leaking in while it steeps for a minute or so, it's melting the butter and getting it all prepared. And then whenever you're done, you add the whole cup of coffee, give it a quick stir, rinse your spoon, and you're done. And to me, not only to give you protein first thing in the morning and some fat, to me it feels like, I haven't done scientific experiments, but I know after doing this hundreds of times, it seems to blunt that impact of the acid into your stomach. Because that's what hot coffee is. It's basically like a hot cup of acid, essentially. And so if you got an empty stomach, I don't like to eat first thing in the morning. That to me kind of like, blunts the hit of that acid. I'll put the butter in usually the first 2, maybe 3 cups of my coffee. I drink a lot of coffee, probably about a liter a day on average, maybe a little bit more if it's a busy day or I'm really feeling like it, or if it's cold, whatever. So anyway, that's all. Give it a shot, try it out, and let me know what you think. Send us any questions, feedback, info, whatever you got, to info@gearconvoy.com. That's also where you can find all of our show information. The book that I've written, Combat Cat, The Rise of the Felix Unit. You should check it out if you like sci-fi and dystopian. It's really targeted to like young adult audience. It's about a PG-13 rating is what I would kind of give it, barely PG-13. It's not overly done, so you could have kids read it, or you might enjoy it yourself if you like sci-fi and dystopian combat-style movies or books. All right, let's get to it. What do we got on our show highlights today? You can't believe some of the stuff that's happening in the 21st century in America. We have cop busted as an illegal immigrant while trying to buy a gun. That is not a misprint. You're going to love this story. You read this stuff and you're like, these are the people that are supposed to be keeping us safe. How can this be happening? But a cop is busted as an illegal immigrant while he's trying to buy an additional gun. More on that later. A Georgia man murdered over his sticky buns. Or is it his honey buns. The murder is not funny, but I mean the things that people kill each other over. I used to live in Georgia. The heat drives people crazy down there, folks. It is humid. You can go for a walk at like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night in summertime, and within 30 or 40 steps, you are just drenched in sweat. It is because the heat and the humidity are 24/7 there. So anyway, the great stainless steel debate. We're getting some knife talk today. I've gotten questions about knife stuff. I try not to sit there and make this all about niche stuff and material that not everyone's going to appreciate, but we're trying to work some in. So the stainless steel debate when it comes to the world of knives. And a potential governor is arrested in his underwear who wants to kick in some teeth. You're going to love it. All that coming straight up. I don't have Cobra with me down here. I've got a couple of emails and questions and messages about Cobra. Everybody loves Cobra. We haven't had him on camera here. You can find him on our Patreon page. If you go to patreon.com, that's patreon.com, you don't have to pay. It's where we, people can make donations and fund the show because all this, comes out of my time and everything else. But you don't have to pay to listen to the podcast there or to see videos of Cobra and Bacon, my dog. So, but Cobra is not down here with us tonight. He's usually wearing his tactical vest and strutting around the shop while we record the show. If you, in the last couple of episodes, you've heard him, purring up to the microphone, but he's teething right now. So he's in kind of a foul mood. And while he's not taking out on me, he's just kind of, a little noisier than usual, and he doesn't want to stay put. So trying to juggle all that while running a show is not going to work out so well. So Cobra is not with us at the moment. We'll get him back in here maybe in the next week or two whenever he gets that under control. As far as dinner last night, I don't know if you guys mentioned before, steak and eggs, one of my absolute favorite meals and combinations of food for dinner, especially if you're doing low carb. I do very well on a low carb diet. I do very, very well on that. I feel good, and I don't ever feel like overly full and stuffed as much as I love rice and like linguine, and probably my favorite is capellini, angel hair pasta. I do tend, especially the American pastas, I tend to feel, like a lot of people get bloated and just weighed down. It's like a brick in your stomach when you eat a large plate of it. So the low carb diets work very, very well for me. So when I'm doing that, steak and eggs, one of my favorite meals. I like them. I've mentioned before the scrambled eggs. If you look up the Michelin star scrambled eggs recipe, it's a little bit, it's less cooked than we typically do American eggs, but it is very delicious. It's almost like a heavy porridge. Little bit firmer than that, but you can stop anywhere you want. It is delicious though. Instead of adding milk or water, you use either creme fraiche or sour cream as your dairy agent to kind of like bulk things up and control the burn there, the cooking process. It is delicious. So instead of just scrambled eggs, I had huevos rancheros. So the eggs were fried in Kerrygold butter and avocado oil, and put those on 2 corn tortillas with a little bit of, you ever had the ranch style beans? That's probably my favorite type of bean to cook with as far as making stuff like this. But a little bit of the ranch style beans are the ones in the black can, and a little bit of that, a little bit of shredded cheese and some, spicy salsa and a little bit of hot sauce on there and some sour cream, of course. So that is currently resting in my stomach, and I am feeling very, very good as we proceed with the show. All right, let's get to the show. Have some good coffee, folks. Have a good day. It's Friday. Get out there and own it and enjoy it. We are headed into the weekend. All right, first story. We go to Maine. Is this correct? Let me get a sip here quickly. Here's the headline. Illegal immigrant caught working as police officer in Maine while attempting to buy a firearm. The story comes to us via the New York Post. You can't make this up, man. You can't. If somebody wrote some of these stories, this one isn't as outlandish as some of these, but if you wrote some of these into a story, a TV show or something, people would be like, that's a little over the top. Let's tone it down so it's more realistic. But I'm telling you, folks, if life has taught me anything, it is that the reality, truth, is far stranger than fiction in most cases. All right. Federal immigration agents collared a Jamaican national who managed to get himself hired as a cop in Maine, despite being in the country illegally. ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, announced Monday Jamaican migrant John Luke Evans, who was employed as a reserve police officer with the Old Orchard Beach Police Department, illegally attempted to buy a gun. Why was he doing that? We're going to find out in just a second. Actually, we don't find out, but the plot thickens a bit. He was arrested in Biddeford on Friday, according to ICE. They say Evans was also issued a gun by the police department. Now, you got to wonder, what is going through this guy's head? He knows he's here, I would assume. He knows he's here illegally. He goes and applies for a job with the police department. They give him a gun. And then he decides, you know what? I'm just going to keep tempting fate even further. He goes out and tries to buy another gun, another firearm. I don't get it. ICE enforcement and removal operations in Boston, acting field office director Patricia H. Hyde said the fact that a police department will hire an illegal alien and unlawfully issue him a firearm while on duty would be comical if it weren't so tragic. And I got to agree with this lady. I mean, they're taking an illegal alien, they're arming him, and they're giving him police enforcement powers. Oh, man. We have a police department that was knowingly breaking the very law they are charged with enforcing in order to employ an illegal alien, she added. What a mess. The man entered the U.S. legally by flying into Miami National Airport on September 24, 2023. He overstayed his visa by nearly 2 years. I said he was supposed to leave on October 1, 23, but never did. He joined the police force in May as a seasonal officer. As part of his hiring process, he went through the background checks and all this stuff. This is the part they don't really explain how this happened. Our department, this is the police department speaking here, our department and our community relied on the Department of Homeland Security's E-Verify program to ensure we were meeting our obligation, Police Chief Elise Chard told the Fox News Digital. So, according to them, he was supposed to be cleared to work all the way through 2030 or something to that effect. The story was pretty interesting. So, either way, Evans' arrest wasn't the first case of ICE hunting down an illegal immigrant who was employed as a police officer in Maine, which is roughly one of a dozen states that allow immigrants who have work permits to serve as cops. I will just say that is very, very interesting. There's a dozen states that allow immigrants to have work permits to serve as cops. So anyway, you make of that what you want. I won't inject personal opinions into that. We just give you the facts here on the MOA broadcast. The thing is, though, is this kind of behavior by police and those that are in charge of citizens is what bothers people, and it motivates some people to do something about it. And let's see, where are we at here? Okay, we're good on time. Let's jump into this. I've mentioned this before on the show, but have you heard of these guys? They're called First Amendment auditors. Now, everyone that is familiar with these are going to have a range of opinions on what they think of these guys. Basically, what it boils down, I'll give you the simple version first, and then we'll kind of dig into it a little bit deeper. Some of these guys are good, some are bad, some are just looking for confrontation. They want to be provocative to some degree and elicit a response, get clicks, views on their social media pages, YouTube channels, whatever, or they want to get lawsuits against the police departments and so forth, cities and towns. What it really boils down to is we do have a constitutional right. The Supreme Court has ruled, I'm not going to do the case law on this one, but they have ruled, after I believe the case was Turner versus Driver, that there is a constitutional right to observe and record the public officials in the course of their duties, which would include police officers. Okay, so the premise of a lot of these encounters is basically one or two guys will walk up with just cell phones, or they'll sometimes have body cams. They'll have them on monopods or gimbals or all kinds. Some of them have very advanced equipment. And they'll walk up and they'll just start filming in a public area where they are legally allowed to be. And they're basically stress testing the police department to see if they've been educated on how these First Amendment interactions are supposed to go. Some of the cops, what you see on social media, a very small percentage, because I'm sure they don't want to put up the good encounters. They're not going to get as many clicks and views and so forth. But there are plenty of good encounters out there. Some of these cops and police officers, they do a very good job. They're like, oh, you're recording? No problem. Have a good day. As long as you don't go in restricted areas. They always got to throw in a directive or two, whatever. The shocking part is how many of these officers escalate. They have no idea and I'm not saying all cops are bad at all. I've got a lot of friends who are or have been in law enforcement. I've worked with a lot of law enforcement, and I've known some very, very good ones. I've also had some very, very bad experiences because of ignorance, which is what this is, not knowing the law. Anyway, it's shocking how many of these officers that are in these videos have no idea what the actual law is and what their actual police powers allow them to do legally. They frequently violate civil rights. And again, I know the bad interactions are the ones that are going to get posted the most and get, pushed to the top of the algorithm and so forth. but it's shocking how many of them, especially when this kind of started getting big about 10, 12, maybe 15 years ago. And we're going to get to that point here in a second, but they'll just walk up and start slapping cuffs on people. They've pepper sprayed and tased people, taken people to the ground and hurt them, arrested them, deprived them of their liberty for exercising a constitutionally protected right. Now, not everyone's going to agree with it. Not everyone's going to like being videotaped in public, like in post office, city hall, on the sidewalk, in private businesses. If they can see it from a sidewalk, they can videotape it. That's the way the law is, folks, whether we like it or not. I don't like having a video camera stuck in my face or being recorded while I'm doing things. But if it's legal, what are you supposed to do? If you can't sit there and want to deprive someone of their constitutionally protected right, whether you like it or not, because that's the slippery slope, right? You start taking that away. How long before they get to something that matters to you, right? So, but therein lies the rub. A lot of these guys, now that more and more departments and more people are learning about First Amendment auditors and about the laws that apply and so forth, they're starting to just ignore these guys. So a lot of them, and this is going to keep getting worse until eventually this industry, because a lot of these guys are making good money off this, selling YouTube videos and clicks and ads and so forth. Sooner or later, it's probably going to bottom out in some way or another, or it's going to force them to, change the way they do things. Because as more and more people catch on to how this works, they're going to get less and less volatile and, intense reactions from people. So a lot of these guys now are having to get more and more basically douchey. They're having to go up and like almost stick the camera in people's faces, or they'll get extremely confrontational when someone just asks them, "Hey, why are you videotaping my store?" or "Why are you videotaping in a post office?" And it's gonna cause more conflicts. Most of them that you see, they don't really file the lawsuits when they get their rights violated and seek to affect change. Most of them, they just want either the quick clicks and so forth, or they may threaten a lawsuit. Very few of them that I have seen follow through. There are a handful that consistently do. But it's going to get interesting as more and more people get educated as to how this works and what their rights actually are. Guys, if you're in public, you should just expect to be recorded. I don't expect you to like it. I don't like it. I don't like being videotaped. I just, but I've worked at a number of jobs where I was taped 24/7. You get used to it and you just ignore it. But the underlying issue, in my opinion, is if someone has the right to do it, you can't infringe on that civil right. And several of these guys, a lot of them, have won lawsuits because their civil rights have been violated because they were arrested or violently assaulted by police officers while they're exercising their rights. So anyway, we're going to have to move on, but it's just something, look it up sometime. It's kind of interesting how the whole thing goes. And some of these officers, I mean, they're insane. They have gone berserk, assaulted people, hurt them over walking around on a sidewalk with a cell phone camera going. Despite the fact that oftentimes they're standing right underneath a traffic camera, or they're standing right next to a business that has surveillance cameras trained on the sidewalk. Cops will walk up and sometimes they will just flat out hurt people over this. It's crazy. So you got to be very careful. You never know what you're going to get when that law enforcement officer comes in. You never know what kind of day he's having or what kind of, what's going on in his life. So it's an interesting little bit of a niche industry going on. So, okay, that's going to cover that. Where are we at? Let's go to Georgia. To DeKalb County, Georgia. Argument over honey buns leads to deadly shooting. Police say this comes to us from WHIO in Georgia. An argument over a stolen sweet treat led to a deadly shooting. Roderick Crowley, 48, was shot and killed in DeKalb County, Georgia earlier this month. WSB TV reported Michael Crowley, 29, was arrested and charged with his murder. According to the police report, the suspect's father said it all started when Michael confronted his uncle about eating his honey buns. The report says that Michael asked Roderick for money. So what's that, $1.48 or $1.99 or $2? I don't know what honey buns cost anymore. They used to be 50 cents. Whatever. That's going back. I guess I'm showing my age. But $1, $2, $3. He asked for his uncle to reimburse him for eating his honey buns out of the refrigerator. When the older man then began to hit Michael Crowley in the back of the head, allegedly, despite knowing his history of seizures and brain surgery, according to the police report, that's when Michael fired 4 shots at his uncle, killing him. When officers arrived, they found Michael hiding in the woods. A police dog later found the gun. Folks, I mean, I don't have to really break that down. What is going through your head, allegedly, allegedly, whatever. We know how litigious America is. You got to be careful what you say. To kill someone or shoot someone allegedly 4 times over a $3 candy bar or treat, a honey bun. Somebody's going to probably wind up going to prison for a long time over this for a honey bun. Incidentally or coincidentally, should I say, you know what's very, very popular in prison? Honey buns. Honey buns are off just like soups, ramen noodles are often other commissary items are frequently used as money, currency in prison. So if indeed this story plays out that way and this young man goes to prison, he will find that he can get all the honey buns he can handle in a variety of manners. Okay, now we want to talk about stainless steel. If you're in the bushcraft community or the knife world, however you want to phrase it, there are 2 primary classes of steels when it comes to knives and cutlery. Okay, there's what's called stainless steel, which we're all familiar with. That is the steel that has enough chromium or other alloying elements added to it. Usually it has to be over 13% chromium. There's a little bit of wiggle room in there depending on who you're talking to and how the steel was formulated. But typically, I believe 13% is the cutoff for the formulation of the steel to have an alloying element on there, usually chromium, to be considered truly stainless. Okay? There are steels like D2 that fall just below that are considered semi-stainless or near stainless, but we're splitting hairs here at this point. Excuse me. My apologies. So what is the point? Stainless steel, I'm a huge fan of stainless steel. The other type of steel that we encounter very frequently when it comes to bushcraft and camping and outdoors knives is what's called carbon steel. Now, it's kind of a misnomer, I guess not a misnomer, but it's a little confusing there because a lot of stainless steels have just as much, if not more carbon than some of the carbon steels. But they're referred to as carbon to delineate them and differentiate them from the stainless steel because the carbon steels will rust readily. They don't have enough chromium or nickel or other alloying elements to really render them effectively, rust-proof against the elements. So steels like 01, 1095, 5160, and there's a whole list. But if you're not in the knife world, just think of like those old hickory knives or the old kitchen knives and such that your grandparents and great-grandparents had. They would rust readily. Like if you cut a lemon, they would mark the blade up. And they just got that some would find it beautiful, brown, dark patina, which is like an aging of the blade over the years, okay? There's really nothing wrong with those knives and that steel. But why is it that we find so much carbon steel being used in outdoors knives? Is there really a need for it? If you were in the United States or probably around the world, going back a few years, especially 5, 10, 15 years ago, that was the huge bushcraft craze, okay? When the bushcraft craze exploded, everybody was being hammered that you got to have a Scandi grind for most knives, a Scandi grind, which is a very shallow grind or low height grind, only goes up about 1/4 of an inch to 3/8 of an inch, and you had to have carbon steel. Otherwise, if it was stainless, it was junk. If you walked out in the woods with a stainless steel knife, not only were you a greenhorn, you were probably going to die the first time you use that knife, okay? It's not going to work out. The real reason a lot of this happened was because to heat treat carbon steels, they're much simpler steels than stainless steels. And to heat treat them, you can do it with a torch. In some cases, you can do it in a kiln. You can do it in a forge. You can do it in a barbecue grill with a hair dryer and a few other things if you really have to do it. Okay? They're very simple to heat treat. They're very forgiving with their heat treat. And so for smaller homemakers, they were very attractive because it was very easy to pump out knives. Everybody got into knife making about 15, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, and it exploded. And it ran hand in hand with that bushcraft craze that was going on. So these carbon steel knives, they're easier to grind. They're much, much cheaper than stainless steel. And they're much easier to heat treat. They're more forgiving to heat treat. And, in a lot of cases, they're a little bit more resistant to damage if you're really getting stupid with them and abusing them. Fast forward now to 2020, where we are in 2025. Guys, with all the stainless, now, let me just be clear. If you like carbon steel, man, go ahead. Use whatever you want. The purpose of this segment is not to change your mind or make you a believer in only stainless steel. But I get questions sometimes on why I use almost exclusively stainless for my knives. The current crop of stainless steels that we have, this generation of stainless steels, are superb. They will do everything that those carbon steels did as long as you're using the knife in a reasonable fashion and even an unreasonable fashion. If you look up Wilson Custom Knives on YouTube, you will see some videos of me literally murdering my knives with axe handles, with 2x4s, with sticks, beating them to death into other pieces of wood, and no failures at all. Though those examples, those demonstrations go far beyond sane, practical, advisable use, rational use of a knife. These knives, especially the ones that I make, I can't speak for other makers. The knives I make and design and sell are designed to be used as knives. First and foremost, they have aggressive edge cutting, edge geometry, so they will slice aggressively and efficiently, and they will make it a joy to use. So my point is this. I'm not trying to cast a vote against carbon steel, but there's no reason to be overly concerned with the carbon steel. Well, is it stainless? Because I'll tell you this, outside of the bushcraft craze and a lot of guys that are on forums that are just dogmatic, and most of them don't even use their knives, I can tell you, because I've had private conversations. I met a lot of them in person. A lot of them don't even use their knives. They'll show me a knife they got 2 years ago and it looks brand new. Okay. And that's fine if you're a collector. I'm just saying the way people act on forums and online is very, very different than how they act in person. The number one question I've been asked over the years as a knife maker and a retailer and so forth is not, is it carbon? Is it this? Is it 80 CRV2? Is it 01? Is it 3V? The number one question I get asked, speaking for myself only, is it stainless steel or not? The bigger market, the majority of people, they don't really care. They want to use a knife in a sane fashion, and they don't want it to rust. They want less maintenance, and they don't want it to rust. And stainless steel done properly in almost all cases, unless you're getting into really high performance stuff, in almost all cases will give you better edge retention and just as good a durability and almost no rust problems. And they allow you to use a variety of other finishes, like a blasted finish and so on and so forth, a two-tone finish, blasted and satin and other things. Where are we at? Do we have time to get into coatings? No. We'll do coatings. I use coatings on a number of my blades, and I get questions why. We'll dig into that in our next segment, or our next episode, probably on Monday of next week. I've got a lot of positive feedback from the shorter episodes, about 25 to 35 minutes, dropping those in some cases with video and so forth on the Patreon page, so you can see the illustrations, and we're putting up images and photos and other stuff in the video version now, so it's kind of enjoyable to watch that. And then after a certain amount of time, they'll wind up going up to Spotify and YouTube, but the Patreon people get them first because they support the show. And again, you can do that for as little as $1 or $5 or $10 a month. And if you don't want to, you get the podcast for free. So, but we'll dig into coatings next week. And we've also got a big episode coming up on Jim Bridger, which should be a lot of fun. Looking forward to that as well. Let's go to our final story of the day. We'll close it out with a bang. Okay, excuse me. Where are we at? We'll also dig into a little bit more about the various finishes and stuff beyond coatings, the various levels of satin finish and so forth. That we put on different steels as far as a production setting. A lot of folks have questions about that, why it adds so much cost and so forth, and we'll explain that a little better next episode as well. All right, we go to South Carolina. This is their headline, not mine. And then we'll dig in. Wild video shows Democrats' pick for South Carolina governor's race being arrested in his underwears while calling himself God and Superman. We should have a picture of him up right there so you can take a look at him. This is him in his governor or potential pick for governor race mode in the first picture, and we'll see how he slowly deteriorates throughout the video here. This one comes to us via the New York Post. Wild, newly released dash cam footage shows the Democrats' choice to run for governor in South Carolina getting arrested recently in just his underwear. While swearing, using the N-word, and referring to himself as both God and Superman. Allegedly. Married father of 4. And this comes from dash cam and body cam video. So this guy, it's going to be interesting. This is not just wild claims being made up allegedly. This comes to us from dash cam and car cam. Married father of 4, William Mullins McLeod, 53, is facing calls from his own party to step down from the gubernatorial race. Candidate was the word I couldn't think of earlier. Gubernatorial or governor candidate for governor. Gubernatorial race that he only formally entered just Monday. After a video emerged a day later of his bizarre arrest, just months earlier in the month of May. According to WCBD, the prominent attorney was stopped in downtown Charleston while yelling at the top of his lungs and wearing only underwear and shoes. According to a police report, which suggested he showed signs, quote, typical of an individual under the influence of a stimulant, narcotic, end quote. It doesn't matter, my friend. When cops stopped him, they asked him who he was. He allegedly refused to identify himself and said, it doesn't matter, my friend. Trust me. He told one officer when asked his name, I'm one of the most just humans to ever walk this soil. He said, Superman actually sounds good, he added in a bizarre manner. Allegedly. Then apparently he started going off on his political opponent for other candidate for governor, Alan Wilson. I'm daring you right now, McLeod said. While you've got all the teeth in your mouth, you better be in front of the people's house, which my cousin Dan McLeod used to have the wheel. You better be outside holding the press conference telling the world that heads you win and tails you win conversation we had. McLeod, who is allegedly heard uttering the N-word at least twice in the video, also refuses to get out of the patrol car when it arrives at the jail, instead telling an officer he would sleep in the back seat. No, I'm not doing it. No, I'm not getting out of this car. It's time to go to bed, he shouts at the officer before being forcibly removed and booked into the jail shortly before 1 a.m., according to an arrest report retrieved by WCBD. He is currently facing misdemeanor charges for disorderly conduct. I wonder what kind of underwear they were. You think he was a boxers or a briefs man? All right, folks, that's going to do it. Remember, don't wait until you have an emergency to prepare. If you wait, it may be too late. If you don't make it out alive, you don't make it out at all. Stay safe out there, folks.